Hello everyone and welcome to this morning's or this afternoon's stream wherever you are tuning in from. This is the Melbourne's Audience Choice Roundtable. Super excited to meet this. We've already had a quick chat with the filmmakers this morning and I'm very, very excited to delve deeper into their films. So without further ado, let's meet the filmmakers. So we have Austin, Lachlan, Vincent and Catherine. Welcome. Hi guys.
Hi.
Hi everybody.
Hello.
Calling in from different corners of the globe here.
Yes. So why don't we start with you, Catherine, as you're the first person we can see there. So where are you calling in from and what is your film?
I think we're the only one from LA right now, which is 3 a.m.
Oh.
And I haven't even had my coffee yet. Our film is Symphoria, and that's all you want, right now?
Yeah, sure. Feel free to mention anything else at this moment in time if you want to. It's pretty free-flowing, but yeah.
Cool. And if you see David, he's the composer of Symphoria.
That's me.
Nice.
Hi
Also in LA.
David. Also calling in from LA, I believe.
In his studio.
Yeah, it looks very cool in the background there. What can you see?
Nice.
Well, we look forward to delving further into Symphoria and finding out a little bit more about the music within the piece and also your direction, Catherine.
Sure.
Cool.
Oh, wait, right now?
No, not right now. We're going to move on to Lachlan and genre confusion. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, no worries. Hey guys, Lachlan Brown here. I'm from Melbourne, Australia.
Nice.
My film genre Confusion is a satirical feature, basically about a whole bunch of characters that keep switching the genre that they're in. So 7 different genres, and we have sort of a base set of actors who keep kind of transforming and changing their character. And then their worlds kind of start to mold together. And things go a little out of control when that happens.
That must have been such a fun shoot. And even writing it must have been
absolutely.
extremely fun. So I can't wait to delve into that one. Austin, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Austin. I'm a filmmaker based in Wellington, New Zealand, and I made a short documentary called Death Cafe, which is basically about a community group in Christchurch that once a month talk about death with complete strangers, friends, family, and it's kind of shedding a light on what's important to talk about in life, which is death, sadness, loss, and all of this kind of within this film.
Very cool.
Nice. And we will be delving into Death Cafe first. But before we do so, let's meet Vincent. Vincent, hi. Same question goes
my
to
name's
you.
Vincent. Yes, and I'm the director for Esports Ready. Esports Ready is about a streamer who plays video games. Her name is Summer, and she just streams to a small online audience. She's then offered a spot on a competitive esports team, and her family aren't very happy about the idea. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Nice. Great. Well, thank you for sharing all of your stories and introducing yourself. But let's start with Austin and Death Cafe. So that's now starting to play. So Austin,
brilliant.
what inspired this story and how did you hear about this?
So about a year and a half ago, a good friend of mine back in the UK, she told me that her father unfortunately passed away. And within about a week of his passing, she told me that she attended this thing in the UK called a death cafe. And like I'm sure most of us, I'd never heard of a death cafe before. I had no idea what it was. I kind of asked her, it was very intrigued. And then started researching it in New Zealand myself, seeing if there was one here. And because I'm based in Wellington, I thought, okay, convenient, it's cheap, it's easy to make a film. Let's maybe find one in Wellington. But there were none here that were happening. So instead, I found one in Christchurch, which is down in the South Island, right down, kind of halfway down. And then I realized very quickly how perfect it really was, because Christchurch, for those who maybe don't know, is a city that I believe is in kind of need of redemption. It's in need of a fresh start with the earthquakes that happened there, just about a decade ago now. And then in 2019, the awful shooting. I think it's a city that really, is very ready to talk topics and subjects like this. And I kind of met with the people, attended a few of these sessions myself, just to kind of get an idea. And then it went from there, really. I just thought there's a story here that I want to tell. And that was the film.
So you've straight away hit on a point that we talk about a lot with documentary, which is when you're filming with a group of people, it's so important to immerse yourself with them for a few things, really, I guess, so that you can fully shed light correctly, but also so that you build the trust of the subjects that you're talking to here and wanting them to open up on camera. So how long would you say you did spend with them? You said you went to a few of these meetings.
Yeah, so I maybe spent about... 2.5, maybe 3 months with them first, kind of getting an idea of what kind of topics are raised in this kind of meeting. It could be anything from euthanasia to suicide to kind of family death to anything really. There aren't any rules when it comes to this group. People just kind of are free to talk about things. And I kind of wanted to, because the group can be quite big, there can be anywhere from 5 to 15 people attending at one time. I thought, okay, I need to kind of hone in on maybe 2 to 3 people that have experienced death or have reacted to it in different ways. And that happened to be people such as, Meg, Richard, and Rosie, our 3 kind of main characters. And I think the one thing you guys touched on with your question, it's all about the trust, that kind of building that relationship before you put a camera in front of them. Because I don't know about you guys, but the moment you put a camera in front of someone, they just kind of, most of the time, they kind of freeze. And you have to have them getting very used to you as someone, whether it be an actor, non-actor, participant in a film, whatever. For me, it's all about kind of building that connection, that trust with them, so that once you do ask them a question that maybe they weren't ready for, they can actually answer it in hopefully a more natural and more believable way.
Definitely. I mean, I think people can clam up in front of the camera, as you said, at the best of times, let alone when you're talking about something so personal. And actually, I'd go as far as to say taboo. Which is why it's really cool that you get films like yours, as well as it's really cool that you have the groups and charities doing work like this. So that's amazing. Should we talk more about the film specifics then?
Yeah, I just had a question regarding deaf cafes. When you researched into this, did you find that there was a worldwide community of these, or was it just something that you found in New Zealand and in the UK?
No, so it actually started in the UK about 10, 12 years ago, a guy called John Underwood. And basically he and his wife started it, and it slowly kind of spread and kind of made its way around the world to the US, to Asia, to a lot of Europe, and then eventually out to Australia and New Zealand as well. So it is a big following, it has a big following. There's a lot of people out there that want to talk about it because it is such a, I think it is a widely discussed topic. As you said, it is widely kind of something that we throw away in the closet. We don't really talk about it that much. But I think the fact that there are people in different cultures, different communities that are talking about it and are willing to share very personal, intimate stories, that's something that I want to see on film. And that's kind of, that was the kind of the fuel that kind of, that kept me going throughout the production.
And sometimes it's just a lot easier to talk to someone you don't know. Just get it out. There's no judgment. It's just out there.
I think that's crazy though, isn't it? The fact that you can't talk about it with people, your friends, your family, your brothers, sisters that you've known for 20, 30 years, yet you talk about it with someone that you've never met before in a room with a cup of coffee and a bit of cake. That to me, hearing that like concept was so weird and so kooky, but I was so intrigued by it. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized how these are the people that we need to listen to in both now and in the future. Really, it's crazy.
The Chinese will talk about anything to anyone.
I find that so interesting as well, the way that these things are so different in different cultures. So that's interesting to hear from you. Thank you, Catherine.
No problem.
So we're just seeing a few sort of cutaways here of her with the cake. It looks crystal clear. It's a great image, something that sometimes is lacking in documentary. What were you shooting on?
So we shot on a Canon C200, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I'm a bit of a Canon purist, all the way from when I was about, 14, 15, my parents bought me a Canon 600D, one of those entry-level ones, and ever since then, I think the milky quality of a Canon, like the image, it lends itself so well for, I think, realistic fiction drama and realistic documentary. I think it's so, and it's so, they're so practical. They're like half the size of a head. They're amazing. And then with the little lens, zoom lens on the front, you can shoot anything. But it's great. They're really good. And then of course we shot it in a very flat profile, a C-Log, and then we had a lovely grader come in and make the colors pop at the end, especially the lady with the blue hair. So that blue hair worked really well.
So how long was the shoot, or should we say, how long was the production from start?
So
to
production, yeah. So I must have started contacting them in kind of May 2019, and then we didn't shoot until September. So it was a decent amount of time to kind of prep, get an idea of my story, my focus. We shot for 3 days in September, and then we shot for 2 additional days in November 2019. And then since then, during COVID, during the first lockdown here in New Zealand, which was March last year, March 2020, we then, I was cutting throughout the whole time. We finished it in, I guess it must have been, May, August 2020. So about a whole year from beginning to end.
Great. And what's the plan for this film after? So are you currently doing the festival circuit at the moment?
Yeah, I'm putting it out to festivals both domestically in New Zealand, Australia, of course, here with the Melbourne Lift-Off, and back in the UK as well. I think there's a voice for it there because of how widespread the death cafes are in the UK. And it would be nice to, when COVID goes away, to go back and represent England again.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you have a pretty strong British accent.
Yes, I'm from the south of England, but I luckily moved here about 3 years ago, and I've never looked back. Wellington's a great city.
It is, yeah.
How has the festival circuit received this film?
So at the moment, I think because of the COVID world that we live in at the moment, I think it's quite a relevant story to tell. I think people are wanting to hear stories like this in a way, with the news, with everything that's happening, both COVID and everything else in different countries. I think people were maybe looking at kind of something like this as kind of inspiration to kind of maybe talk to their friends, talk to their family, reconnect with people that they haven't talked to, check that they're okay. So I think, the response has been generally pretty good so far, both with this festival and other festivals as well.
So then, after the festival circuit, how do you see this film going, or where do you see it going?
Yeah, so already, I would hope that it could potentially expand to something bigger. I already have contacted I have reached out to the original Death Cafe founders back in the UK, and they were very interested in seeing kind of how it could be interpreted in a different way. So if there maybe is another story to tell back in England in the future, I don't know. But for now, though, I think for me, it's about finding different subcultures, finding different communities of people around New Zealand that not necessarily none of us really know about. So so that's something, hopefully the next film or the next project, that's something that I want to look into for sure.
Very cool. So you want to stick to documentary?
I think for now, yeah. I'm only 25, so I feel like I'm too young to write like a decent amount of fiction, a decent screenplay, and make it into a great festival. I think I'm too naive. I need to learn a bit more about the world, and there are too many interesting people in the real world for me to go off and write fiction for 10 years. I think the documentaries is the way to go for me at the moment, personally.
And was there anyone in particular that inspired you to get into documentary filmmaking?
Like filmmakers, you say?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I'm sure you guys will know Louis Theroux is a big inspiration of mine. I think every film that he's made, bar maybe a couple, he's pretty consistent with his access, with his trust of people. I think the questions he asks, they don't push buttons too much, but they're enough to kind of, to give a decent amount out, I guess, for a participant to give enough over. Both him and probably older films of Nick Broomfield, British filmmaker as well. He made the films about the Eileen Wuornos, the serial killer in America, and loads of amazing films, all about kind of one person. He did a film about Whitney Houston a few years ago as well. So but I think both their films are
the Whitney
filmography are really inspiring.
The Whitney doc was amazing. And Louis Theroux, it was funny because when you mentioned that they touch on things like suicide and euthanasia, obviously he's got an episode on euthanasia in America. And it was the same as you said, people are so willing to talk about these things, even though they are so raw, and that creates such an interesting dynamic on the screen, just like your film does. So it's interesting to hear that he's been an influence.
Absolutely. I think the one film that you mentioned, I believe it was called Choosing Death. Is this the one when Louis went to America and he met like 3 separate people that were thinking about assisted suicide? Yeah, that film maybe about 2 years ago when it aired. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. The fact that there are certain states in the US that are, one, saying yes to this, and two, having a film crew, the BBC come in and film, is incredible, riveting television, I think.
And you're talking from a country that have only just passed it. So it's so interesting that this is such a rapidly changing social issue in some places, and in some places, there's still no conversation at all. So no, thank you.
Maybe
so
that's
much
the next
for sharing
story.
this.
Maybe that's the next story to tell. Euthanasia in New Zealand, and someone going through that journey, not knowing what it's like, not knowing, because there's not been a history of it here. So who knows?
Sure.
Yeah, it's definitely worth looking into creating some sort of anthology or trilogy with the same themes, and then looking to getting that distributed as a package. Because short films, as we all know, are very hard to get picked up and distributed. But an hour-long collection is what people are looking for at this moment in time.
More
so
appealing.
it's definitely something to keep in mind. But yeah.
Definitely.
Amazing.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we move on to the next film?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, firstly, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to voice my film and give me a chance to talk with these, incredible filmmakers. I think it's a real privilege to be sitting amongst you guys and learning and hearing about everyone else's stories. I think it's, we're very, very lucky to be able to make films, whenever we can. So yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
And do any of our filmmakers have any questions for Austin? No? Okay, great.
I guess not. I tick them all off.
Tick them all off, yeah, exactly. Austin, do
You
stay...
ladies are very, very, seasoned interviewer. Pretty much all the thoughts that I had to ask, you did it.
No, thank you.
Wonderful. Do stay engaged with the rest of this interview as we move on to Catherine's film and Symphoria. So, same questions really to start off with, Catherine. What was the inspiration behind this story?
The inspiration. Okay. It was, I think, it started off, I was inspired by Dexter.
Okay.
And I didn't know it because I have 4 feature scripts that I've written before this one, but and that was like, they're all comedies, lighthearted comedies. And so I thought I was starting to write a funny story with intrigue like Dexter, but a feature instead of series. And then as I kept going, a strange thing happened that never happened in the first 4, which is my characters became independent of my head. And they just wanted to go into these darker places. And I was kind of worried. I told my husband, who is David, the composer of Symphoria, I had said, this is worrying me. Why am I going so dark? And he just said, well, why don't you just go with it since it's so easy? And like the first 4, you do the whole 12 changes and all of that outlining. And then you struggle, with the writing part. This one, the characters were very clear to me, and they just wanted to go certain directions. And so David said, just go with it. You don't have to make it. You don't have to put it out there. Just see what happens. And it turned out that was the one that everybody really loved. The ending was everyone's favorite part. So that's sort of the inspiration that started Symphoria in the writing stage.
I think you made a really, really strong point there about just do it. Just get a film made, see what happens, because there's so many blocks in the way or people overthinking and putting themselves as an obstacle in order to get their films or get their ideas on paper. I know I'm a victim to it myself. I have lots of film ideas and I want to write it down. I get to the paper, I'm like, no, maybe not. And I just think hearing it from your mouth, just literally saying, what's the worst that can happen? Just do it and see where the journey goes. Such good advice.
Definitely.
That's David's advice to me. And yeah. So what was the other question?
it was more about what was the inspiration and what got the film
Oh,
up and
yeah,
onto its
that
feet.
was the inspiration.
So how long did it take you to write the script then? You said it was very free flowing. It was
Oh.
easy to write.
The first draft, to my amazement, was in less than a month. Which,
okay.
if you know my other scripts, it probably took a year to get to the place where I'm happy to show it. This one, I was happy at the end of that month, and it went through another year of rewrites. You know, you give it to people, and they come back with critiques and rewrites before we can actually, talk about production. So that was probably a year. But the thing is, my executive producer was really, really smart. So she started the pre-production while we were at the 6 month into finishing the script. And that saved a lot of time. We were kind of in a crunch because of many technical reasons. So that helped us like scrunch up the time. So for those of you that think that everything has to be lined up, it doesn't. I thought that it doesn't. You just have to have a really smart executive producer to, guide you through that. And why would I'm sorry, it's 3 a.m. Why am I saying that?
Not at all. No, you're doing great. So before we get to talking about the actual shoot itself, then let's stick on pre-production. How was financing this? Talk us through how you found the budget.
The budget was very, very little. I was hoping for more, but it was my first project. So
Yep.
I felt lucky. My executive producer said I cannot tell how much money to everyone yet. So it was let's say that through SAG and AFTRA, the union, it was ultra low. The contract was ultra low.
Sure.
So that gives you an idea. For those of you in the industry here, you'll know what that means.
So did you go down some crowdfunding in order to get the funding in place, or how did you secure the funds?
Again, with my executive producer, we it's sort of a private crowdfunding.
Okay.
So we went to people, with the funds,
Sure.
and did it there.
Yeah,
and also, it doesn't hurt to have an executive producer that is very. She's just so creative in everything, in filmmaking.
Yeah.
And probably outside that too, but in filmmaking, it's just she keeps saying, "Why don't we do this?" And in my mind, I'm going, "Oh wait, how are we going to do that?" And then she tells me, and we do it. So. Yeah, she's amazing. She should be working all the time.
That's the great thing about working with talented people and having people filling these roles. Sometimes in indie film, people just simply can't have all these different people working. You've got to wear all the different hats yourself. But the joy of it when you can and you're lucky enough to work with these people is, as you said, everyone brings different things to the table. And if you can have a strong exec producer or a strong producer or even associate just helping you out with these things, it can be so beneficial to the project. So
Cool. This woman, her name is Nancy Isaac, and she did like the job, like, I'm not kidding, 100 people. I don't normally exaggerate. So I mean, I don't think I'm exaggerating. I mean, you can ask David, he was here to see it. So I am very, very grateful for that.
So David, just to ask you a question then, at what point did you come in with designing the score? Was it once you'd seen the whole film, or was it as you were reading the script? I know composers work in different ways. So talk us through your process.
Well, I had read the script. I knew what the story was, but I didn't really start until I actually saw the first cut. And I mean, I'm a improvising musician. I've been playing jazz for a long time. I'm classically trained, but I've been playing jazz a long time. So I sort of improvised as I went along. I mean, you have certain rules of composing with what they call leitmotifs and certain melodies that are different characters, and I'm aware of all these things, but again, you just sort of throw that out and just I watch it one time and then you just start doodling until you find something that you like. And that was how I did it. I mean, you know, I was not fast. It took a while, and then there were other cuts and I had to change things, but I did it on the fly as I went along, and hashed it out. Got stuck, had to rewrite, had to throw stuff away. It was all part of the process.
Sure.
So we can see quite a lot of different locations here within the film as well. We're currently in a laboratory or a school. How did you find all these locations?
Right here where we live in Malibu, California.
Did you have someone to help you scout the different locations?
Well, the lab that was supposed to be a college chemistry lab was the high school chemistry room. And it looked very much like a high school chemistry classroom. So our set designer, production designer, made this high school room so like different. I mean, when I walked in after she, you know, had done her magic, I was like, I couldn't believe that, you know, everything was changed. And that helped a lot, because that was the absolute cheapest place you can rent a chemistry lab that looks like the high school. And it wasn't cheap. It's like a lot of the budget, but we had to do it. And then what else? Oh, here's a newsflash. If you shoot in what is it? The public parks of California, it's really inexpensive.
Oh, good.
And so, yeah. So for those of you that want to shoot in California, you might want to think about that. It's basically like less than, what is it? It was less than, I want to say $800 for everything. I mean, everything. They help you. But okay, now this was 10 years ago. I don't know if I don't think anyone knows, like, from Film Freeway or the because it's not really online. It's on my website. Our film took 10 years from beginning to finish, and I counted the writing part. Because it's one of those things that I wanted to finish it fast, and it just didn't happen that way. Many difficult things happen during the process, where I had to like you know, the crash would hurt a lot. The economic crash hurt a lot, because there's like a ripple effect. It happened in 2008, but the hurt of most people didn't come until like 2010, 2011, around there. A lot of people felt it in its worst way. So that hurt, and what else happened? Oh yeah, I don't mind saying this, but I was diagnosed with breast cancer at some point. And the doctors healed me, they saved me, but there was a period of about a year where I was not allowed to do anything but focus on the treatments.
Of course.
And it worked, so I'm still here. And it's a tumultuous journey for this film getting made, and sometimes during that period, I almost didn't think I was gonna be able to finish it, but it happened. And so the reason I'm saying that is because now prices are gonna be 10 years greater than when we shot. So, but it's still the best prices. You know, if you need beautiful locations, and in Malibu we have beautiful state parks and everything, and that's where all of the outdoors are shot, except the ones that are shot around our yard. And with some creativity, you can shoot in a lot of space that you don't think you can shoot at. Like in our house, I didn't think we can use our house, you know, even for anything at all. But with, again, our executive producer and the production designer working together, they saw so much, and that was in pre-production, so that we can plan ahead. And also because we were still in the last stages of the rewrite, I can basically rewrite it to fit whatever the location we can afford. So that was part of the beauty of Nancy Isaac, is that she has this brilliant mind, you know, putting things together. So we ended up using probably 5 locations were squeezed out of our house. And
amazing.
Yeah. And my poor family had to live with that, though. That's the only thing.
Well, firstly, let me say
I was down here most of the time.
Nobody goes in
finishing the project. Amazing tenacity and perseverance. So I'm sure everyone joins me in saying a huge congratulations on that. That's an amazing story to hear. So that's 10 years in the making, and you've reaped the rewards of that now. What's next for this project, but also for yourselves as filmmakers and composers? Let's start with this film. Where do you see it going? Is there are you hoping for distribution? I'm sure Nancy's sort of helping with that.
Yes. I have I've built a website with my website guy. And it's just 3 a.m. so my brain can't focus on the words I want to say, but it's the guy who does the website. And that has all the information for distribution.
Very cool.
And I was able to find an entertainment attorney to help me along. And so far, I think something's happening, but I don't know what yet, because it's going through my attorney, and he's only going to show me the stuff that goes somewhere.
Sure.
And so I actually prefer that.
Yeah. Well, our fingers are crossed for you. To end then, what about in general, moving on from this project? Are you both working on anything at the moment? Is there another project in the pipeline?
Well, this film was finished in March of 2020, just in time for the pandemic.
Yeah. Perfect timing.
So that's actually when I decided to start the festival circuit. Before, we didn't really have a budget, so I sort of just go, all right, I'm a working actor, so just spend my own money to do it and see if since we're stuck here, and it seems silly that it took all of this long journey to get to the finishing, put it in the can, so to speak, and you other filmmakers are way too young to know what that means, right? Put it in the can. Because it used to go in a can. Anyway, so what was I saying? What's my thing? Oh yeah. So what I want to do is put it out there and see what the reactions are, and maybe that'll help me focus on what to do with it. And it did actually really shockingly well. I didn't expect it to go either way. And I started with, just the tiny festivals, but, in LA, I started, and it, because it did so well, I had invitations from other festivals, and a lot of them were giving me really good discounts. So it was like, oh, well, okay, I spent more on that in whatever, so I can justify it. And then, and it's sort of catapulted. And so we were really blessed with that because I really did not expect that. So I remember at some point I said, wow, this is great, because after I directed my, first feature film, I realized that I enjoyed that more than I enjoy even acting. So it was really hard to act and direct at the same time. But because I had a lot of help, it wasn't quite as bad. So being able to direct at all was just heaven. I don't know, probably because I'm bossy. And because I'm an actor, I can speak actor language. So it's really cool to, talk to your actor for whatever, a couple of minutes, and then you watch them transform. I really like that part, because I can't really do that with myself, because, I can't see. Well, we had a video I could, but we were on a budget. We cannot wait for me to watch every scene or every shot. I had to count on the people around me to trust that it works. So I would love to be on a platform like Netflix. And because if I could do that, I know that when they like the filmmakers, they, give them more projects to do, and they fund it. And that would just be heaven for me, because then I can just direct. And it's just, I'm hooked. I am hooked. It is amazing. Like nothing else in the world to watch your actors do their magic, and you actually contribute to that. It's just, I don't know. It's, I guess, a little, I don't know how to describe it. It's just so fulfilling.
No, that's amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. And David, is there anything you'd like to add before we move on?
Nope, just more work.
Definitely.
Life is tough for artists now.
It really is. So
tough at the best of times.
Future's going to bring, more things. We're going to clean up our act, and hopefully the arts are going to flourish again. So any work that comes my way, I'm going to be grateful for.
Amazing.
Wow.
I also want to add, if I may, I want to thank the Lift-Off, everybody in Lift-Off Global Network, for this opportunity for us too. It was so fun to do. It was very stressful, but very fun.
Well, no, thank you so much for participating in the festival, engaging with other people's work as well. We appreciate it. It's what it's all about. And to get to meet people like yourself face to face, I'll put in inverted commas. We would have loved to have actually been in Melbourne, but this is great. Thank you, Catherine, so much.
So let's move on to Esports Ready and Vincent, or Vince. Hi.
Hello.
You look like a gamer yourself with those headphones and the little piece to the side, or the microphone.
Yeah, I've been playing games for quite a long time now, and I'm pretty sure my parents would definitely say the same.
Perfect. So obviously a little bit about your background has inspired this story, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about what moments and what the inspiration was behind this?
So, what inspired the story? It's kind of a couple of years ago, I saw a documentary, and a couple of my friends would know where this is from as well, watching. It's called Jeff and Barracuda, A Smite Story, and it's a 50-minute documentary, and it was going into kind of the inner workings of more of their kind of lives and in the esports atmosphere. And of course, Smite is not a big platform, but they were able to, in their first season, I believe, to win the World Championships and win $1 million, around that much, because it was also funded by the people who played the game as well. And I've just found that really interesting, as I, of course, played that game, and I was really interested in that kind of atmosphere. Yeah, and something like this is just, I wanted to make a short fiction story to have a role model out there, because it's another thing, I haven't seen something like this before when I was like writing it. So I wanted to make something incredibly unique for the honors course at Deakin, and I just wanted to try and stand out from the rest and try and just, make a coming of age story and kind of show that, hey, what if girls could do it too? And that's kind of what I wanted to do as well. And yeah.
Very cool.
So you hit on a key word there of coming of age, and this is quite a family-friendly film as well, from what I understand. So when we speak to sale agents and distributors, we talk to them a lot of the time, especially around all the film markets. So we attend Cannes, or the Marché du Film, AFM, the American Film Market, and a few others that take place. And family-friendly content is what is always sought after. Like, that is what is in high demand. And seeing a project like this instantly sparks me to be like, I hope this filmmaker turns this into a feature and uses this short as the proof of concept in order to get the funding in order to do that, because it definitely has legs. Is that your idea, or have I just planted a seed?
I have been told this throughout because I finished filming in late 2019, early 2020, as when we mastered it. Mix and master it, and a lot of people were saying you could probably make this into like a web series or in a movie, and I was thinking potentially doing a full rewrite and maybe using this as a proof of concept, but I haven't gotten around to that yet. I've just been mostly thinking about it every now and again, just going, could I do it or could I not do it? I don't know. I really do want to do it though, and it's something that will be down the line. And well,
I mean, I don't know what your pre-production story was, but here at Lift-Off, our two co-founders are big gamers, and we know because of that how big the community is. Did you tap into the gaming community to help get support, whether that's financial or whether it was just viewership support for this project? Did you sort of exploit the niche social medias for it and that sort of thing?
In terms of that, what I did was mostly ask a lot of so I'm not sure if of course I consulted some female Twitch streamers, and I wanted to talk to them about like maybe their experiences, and even get thoughts on like the script and see if I'm doing it correctly, and try to get maybe some constructive feedback and be able to make sure it is done right, of course. In terms of like talking about it in the gaming atmosphere, I have just mostly just reached out to people saying, hey, what do you think about the idea of esports, and just kind of asking random people, like my manager at work. I asked, hey, what do you think about the idea of esports, because I wanted to kind of bridge the gap at the same time, like make it so you're looking at it from a perspective that you don't know much about it, and kind of tell a story that maybe you could learn more about it, and maybe being more lenient or more open-minded to the idea that people could play games for a living, like Twitch streamers do. They could get upwards to 100,000 viewers, and Valkyrie on this platform, YouTube, she gets 70,000 viewers every time she streams, and it's insane to see so much support from just people playing games, and it's the idea is it's just entertaining, and I kind of want to bring that point across to like that was mostly the point. Another point of the movie. It's kind of like I said, bridging the gap and just have my family even let them understand what it means to be in a competitive esports atmosphere.
Sure.
And I do have some experience even administrating tournaments with kind of course on a smaller scale, but I did administrate tournaments for the Australian region for Smite, and just kind of make sure games are running correctly, talk to the guys, make sure everything's running correctly, and all that type of stuff.
Wow. Yeah, like Claire said, there's a huge audience for gaming, so I can really see how this could be exactly inspiring for lots of younger people and people who don't necessarily know too much about this world. Claire mentioned there that the co-founders of Lift-Off are both huge gamers, whereas Claire and I are just like, oh, it's a computer, great. We don't care. But I feel like if we understood more about it and saw a story like this, we would definitely spark an interest. So I think you're doing a really good job.
Yeah, and there's huge scope there. As Nat said, if you use this as a proof of concept, if you do go down the route of web series, this is something that we've sort of got articles on that we've written at Lift-Off. We definitely recommend start scoping out your audience and support in pre-production or even before, like there's really a concept there, because you can start before. Kind of what Catherine said about how like the stages of a production can overlap. Like it doesn't have to be this linear chronological thing that people sometimes think of. Because you could start building up a strong audience using all the different, ways that you use social media, following accounts, hashtags, buzzwords, all these kinds of things. And you could have yourself such a strong audience, I'm sure, before you've even got a finished product. So that if you did need to go to financiers or that sort of thing, you can say, this is my audience, like this is who's going to be watching and promoting maybe, or cross promotions, that kind of thing. Because, it's definitely a world with a lot of people out there supporting.
Yeah.
Well,
that makes a lot of sense.
My son would love you. He plays games all the time.
There you go. You've already got an extra follower.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously this is shot in a home. Was it shot at your place, or did you hire a location?
We Sally, my producer, she helped me look for these different places to make sure it looks, of course, good. And she stumbled across an Airbnb, and I had a look at it, and I thought it was that's good, that's perfect. And something that I really liked about the location is that in the film, we have the character Summer's bedroom, but we also have the character Furfaro, who is the big-time streamer who hosts her, and she gets all the viewers. And it turns out that we use the exact same room, but we kind of changed it around. And I would like to thank the production designers for that, because I thought it was a massive, it was incredibly good. And in terms of the locations, I feel like it was very easy to get. What I wanted to do was write a script that was just very practical, very I wouldn't really say easy to do, but that was kind of the easiest path of least resistance, if that makes sense. And we used Deacon resources, so we filmed the final shots, the final part of the film in the Deacon Auditorium, and we filmed the other half where you see Summer on the desk at the end. Spoilers. We filmed it in the TV studio that they have, and they in fact Deacon in fact run their own TV what is it? It's like a football thing, and we just wanted to use all the resources that we already have and take advantage of them. And Sally was definitely a massive hand, as well as the production designers. And I couldn't have been in better hands, to be honest.
Amazing. I was just going to say, what would you say is sort of like was the biggest learning curve during this production? Is there what's the number one takeaway? Because we always say every production you do is a new learning curve. Everything you take forwards into your next project. What would you say was the biggest takeaway from this?
Oh, that's a really good question. The biggest takeaway I feel like is, well, I wouldn't say the biggest, but this would be one of them. It's the first one that came to my mind. Is like the connections and the friends that I made on set, and learning from them as well. Just essentially, because it was my first time directing, so I was very well, of course, very inexperienced, but of course, Tegan did have a hand in like trying to guide me, and they did a great job. And it's mostly just the process, honestly. The process and the research that goes into the film and making sure everything's running smoothly. And it's, yeah, making sure, of course, like with your script writing, because it was a 6 months full of, well, more than 6 months. We started writing in March. Well, at least I'm pretty sure I did March. And we finished in August, and then we filmed in late September. That was kind of like the whole overview of what the course is, and it was mostly just understanding what the industry is, or how the industry is going to be if I do move into it, which I hope I do one day. That was kind of the big eye-opening, thing. And it's of course not easy, and I knew that going in. Nothing worth it is ever easy, you know what I mean? And I was just very excited to try and do my best for this project, and try and do my best to show the world, show people a role model, which could be a good example of someone wanting to be a gamer and wanting to make money from it just by playing professionally.
Very cool.
So what's next? What are you working on now?
Well, I'm currently sound designing for a short film for my best friend.
Nice.
He offered me, and I graciously accepted. And another little fun fact is I also sound designed for Esports Ready for this as well, and a lot of and one thing as well, we reached out to, of course, Blizzard, who created Overwatch, and we've reached out to Discord for their sound effects. And at the moment, I'm thinking I want to work a little bit more in like the sound design, sound edit, and sound mixing, and try to get more of an idea of like the importance of sound in film, because I've grown really attached to it. And not to say that I don't want to direct anymore, I definitely do. But at the moment, I feel like I'm really enjoying sound, and I want to look more into it. And on the side, I'll probably do, some script writing, and maybe make Esports Ready a short film, or a feature film, and a web series one day. And
very cool.
For Esports Ready's future, I would say that I would continue the festival circuit and use it as a proof of concept. It's doing pretty well in the festival circuit, and I'm very happy with it so far.
Well, you hit the nail on the head of the length. So it's like 10 minutes, which is like ideal programming slots. So well done for that. And also, as you mentioned, sound is one of the most important aspects of a film, and it's one of the criteria that our jury and judges are very strict on. As if there's any wind, if there's any anything that's not crystal clear with the sound, it's almost gone. And that's because as soon as you put it through a PA system or put it in a large space, it has to be to standard. Otherwise, you're destroying a film.
What we were talking about earlier with Austin, you can be a little bit more forgiving with documentary on visuals, but sound, no matter what the film, no matter what the genre, we just have to turn them down if the sound isn't good enough, don't we? Yeah. Well, Vince, thank you so much for sharing your project with us. We
you
look
very
forward
much
to
for having
hearing, you know, if we get a request to start following an account for the future web series or feature.
I will be sure to let you guys know for sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we always say, do keep us updated on your next projects and stuff. We love seeing what people get up to.
Okay, cool. So then moving on to genre confusion. Lachlan, why don't you reintroduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about the inspiration behind your film?
No worries at all. Hey guys, I guess the concept kind of stems from I have quite a passion for live performance as well, and while the film seems a little quirky, quite a lot of the ideas that crop up in it are pretty commonplace for live performances. It's not very strange to go see someone in a play and see them play multiple roles within that one world, and so it was always a concept that I was really interested in. I mean, it was really fun. You got to see the actors' range, but it also it kept things really fresh. So it was something I really wanted to bring to the screen, but I also wanted to do it in a way that felt like it was giving quite a few nods to existing pop culture references, but also gave a little bit of a creative spin to that as well. So by starting to kind of merge those worlds together, we got to see some really familiar tropes start to bleed, and those worlds kind of crumble. So the original concept, after I kind of came up with it, I basically just kind of picked a genre, one that I was really excited about, and one that I had kind of dabbled in very briefly, and that was in fact the Western. And I just sort of I started writing dialogue, and I think a huge part of that process for me was kind of speaking the dialogue out loud. The film is very dialogue heavy, and the narrative is kind of driven by that, because it is trying to be really satirical and trying to hit so many of those tropes, and quite a lot of that comes from the way that the characters interact with each other, which is especially important when those worlds do start to bleed together. So yeah, writing that dialogue really did come down to me kind of saying it out loud, inviting friends around. The actor one of the actors that plays opposite me in the film, Josh, who's the sheriff in that image there.
Yep.
He loves these sorts of really quirky ideas, and he was all for kind of coming around and voicing some of that dialogue to see if it flowed, because more often than not, you start to write some of that stuff down and it really doesn't work within the world of the piece. So,
well, this is why roundtables are so important at the beginning, or script read-throughs, I should say, are so important.
Yeah, so I think that's basically how it sort of came to be. I would start to write some stuff down, start to voice it, scrap it, go back, make tweaks here or there, and I basically wrote them one at a time. I sort of wasn't jumping between genres in the writing process, but all of that very much changed once we started filming. We were kind of jumping here, there, and everywhere depending on people's schedules.
So how long are we talking here from until you had a finished draft?
So from the initial concept to the finished project, it was a 2-year process. Most of that, I know it's probably going to sound a little strange. I mean, I'm with so many talented filmmakers today who devote themselves to their art, and I wish I could afford to do that. I'm a secondary teacher, so most of my projects kind of stem from, I've got a 2-week holiday period where I'd really love to do something creative, something a little bit different. And so I start writing with the hopes that I'll be able to kind of knock out a short film in a really small period of time, with quite a quick turnaround. And unfortunately, this one got away from me, and it just grew and developed and became the monster that it did. So it was a 2-year process, but it certainly wasn't non-stop. So I obviously could afford to work on it whenever I could, but then it was also about balancing the schedules of the other actors. But it certainly was very difficult, wearing quite a lot of the production role hats, but that also came in.
Got your resume up here essentially, and director, writer, producer, and key cast on the film, which is insane. Which was your
Oh,
favorite role?
maybe a little self-indulgent, but the benefit of being the actor and the director is that I always know I'm going to get the role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knock out all the middlemen.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's just one of those things where, yes, it is very, very difficult to be on set and trying to juggle all those balls at once, but it certainly does come in handy when you're sort of need to leave the project for a bit and then come back to it, or
that's true.
if you need to do reshoots and things like that, it means that there are less people that you're putting out, and you can kind of organize that a little bit easier.
So talking about the actors here and the kind of collective that you have, did you know all the actors before going into this film, or did you cast specifically each role?
So there wasn't a formal casting process. So some of the actors I'd worked with previously, and even when I was writing, I kind of envisioned them in the role, and others we sort of picked up along the way. And I think some of that came out of convenience. Others, they were just perfect for the role. So the three central actors that kind of changed, so Josh, myself, and Sam, we appear in each of the genres. And initially the idea was to have a female character doing the same. But unfortunately, the person that we got for our first role, then when it came to shooting the second one, she was tied up with something else at the time. So we ended up getting someone else on board to fill in for that role. And then we actually started to really fall in love with the dynamic of one of those characters changing. And I think part of that, while it wasn't initially intended, came down to it really felt like it worked for the film. It was almost like there was this cohesive storyline that flowed throughout, but there was always an element that was changing. And so by having an actor that changed every time we were to jump between those different genres, it really helped kind of sell that idea.
Yeah. A happy mistake. Or not mistake.
Exactly
A happy...
right.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. It's fine.
So it's a silly question, but I wanted to ask it as soon as you said it. Have your students seen this film? I mean, they must love watching it if you do projects during the different holidays and stuff.
It's a bit of an interesting question. So there are definitely short films and things that I've shown previously, and part of that comes down to I really want them to feel confident to embarrass themselves or challenge themselves, do things that they've never done before. And I think as soon as I get up there and show myself doing some really, really quirky things in front of them, it helps alleviate a lot of that stress. They think,
Definitely.
oh, well, my teacher's just made a huge fool out of himself. I'm more than prepared to do the same. And more often than not, it's really helpful because they see something that they love and they want to adapt it and use it in their own work. So for this particular film, not many of the students have seen it. They might see sort of bits and pieces. But I think, especially because it does have a nod to the porno genre, there's definitely some caution about sharing all of that material. So yes, none of my current students have seen the film in its entirety.
Sticking to the same lines then, are you a creative teacher or are you more core subjects?
So I'm a media drama teacher.
Okay, cool.
So
Yeah.
that's why I'm clearly so shy. But it does mean that a lot of these ideas kind of merge together. I like taking elements of drama and putting them into the film, so that episodic nature and the transformation of character is something that is directly out of the Year 12 course of drama.
Cool.
Amazing, just seeing you as a werewolf here now. So
Yeah, that was a particularly difficult shoot, and it's no coincidence that I was playing that role. I did feel like I had quite a lot of cast and crew who I had inconvenienced enough, let alone taking them out to the middle of nowhere and meticulously placing lots and lots of prosthetics on their face as they evolve and change. So I fell on that sword so that no one else would have to go through that.
Well, it just, to me, looks like a lot of fun. And I miss this. Like, I went to drama school here in the UK, and that was what I wanted to do before I fell full time into Lift-Off. And this is just making that acting burn again. So thank you for sharing that. And I feel like a lot of actors would see this and be like, great. Yeah.
Oh well, it's my absolute pleasure to spark that in others. But yeah, it was definitely a really fun shoot, and I think part of why I do these projects. I mean, a lot of other people have an element of prestige to their films, and they really think, yes, this is something that's going to be amazing, and rightfully so. All the other works that I saw in this particular festival were just fantastic, but I kind of approach these projects with a very different idea in mind. It's certainly about having a good time with the people that I'm working with, and I think even just the little snapshots in the credit of the film where people are kind of breaking characters and laughing is a nod to why I do these projects.
That's what I love about film, though. Everyone has different agendas, but ultimately it's still the same thing. It's a collaborative thing that you do, and I think that's why we all love it. Yeah, as Nat said, I'm not surprised to hear you guys had an absolute whale of a time shooting this.
So, are you currently on your summer holiday, or is that just finished?
I am on my summer holiday. It's been a doozy of a year, teaching-wise. This is probably the first time I've been back in this space since online teaching. So getting Vietnam flashbacks, being back in the room. But I'm on holidays now, so this is usually about the time where I would pick up the old pen and start writing again. And it's kind of a point where I'm not sure whether I want to revisit old ideas that I'd written down just before I felt like the creativity was zapped out of me this year, or whether I want to start from scratch and do something new, because the writing process is definitely one of my favorite things about filmmaking.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something?
Absolutely,
you
can.
Is that a typewriter behind you?
It is a typewriter behind me, yes. Quite a lot of props and things that I use in films are existing things that I own, or if I don't own them, because I fund all of the films that I do myself, if I don't own them, then I own them after I've done the film. So there's a lot of really cool little knickknacks and things just kind of lying around, which I absolutely adore. So the typewriter was one that I used in a short film. It was kind of like a film noir, but it was actually set during COVID, and what was the dystopian sensibilities that you thought was coming from that world was actually just how someone in the modern age was interpreting the world because of what was going on.
Very cool. Very cool typewriter.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you said you shot the movie over, you said a couple of years, or is that just writing?
two-year process.
So how do you keep a consistent tone in the final film, despite shooting it here, doing it a holiday there, a week there? How does that come together when you're editing it?
With tremendous difficulty. So continuity is just a huge pain when you are doing things like that. I have, rightfully so, I have actors who want to get haircuts, want to shave their facial hair. And I think my saving grace for this particular film was its episodic nature and the fact that characters didn't necessarily have to look exactly the same between genres. I would also, I had written out the entire film before I started filming, but I did rewrites and reshoots as I was going. And part of those rewrites would account for people's appearance changing. It would be a throwaway line of dialogue or something like that explained how they had changed, or one of the characters would come out halfway through the scene and they'd actually be shaving in the scene. So, there were
no more than one take.
Exactly right. Yeah. So there's quite a few things, a little tricks and stuff along the way. But it's funny because when you say no more than one take, a lot of the ideas of performing live, as I said, I translated to film. But one thing that I'm very aware of when you're shooting a film is you always have to do the takes exactly the same so that continuity is not an issue. And a lot of the actors that I cast are live performers, so they want to come in and give it something fresh and do something different and throw in a line of dialogue. And I always have just the most horrific time in the editing chair trying to cut together all the different ways that they wanted to do the scene.
Just tone it down once, the same line again, not different, no, not here. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Right. Great.
Well, we look forward to seeing what you come up with next. That goes for all of you as well. Please stay in touch, and thank you so much for joining us today. Is there any final thoughts or anything else that you'd like to share before we end today's stream?
Well, I feel like everyone else has had an opportunity to thank you guys.
It's not needed.
Oh no, it absolutely is needed. I mean, it would be needed under regular circumstances, but I think this year it was a lovely reprieve from what was otherwise quite a stressful time and a difficult time. So I personally, and clearly not just me, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity. So thank you so much, guys.
Well, yeah, back at you guys, because we appreciate you throwing yourselves into this new model. It doesn't work without those of you engaging with us like you have. So we really appreciate it as well, because we've enjoyed it, Back in March, we didn't know what the future was going to hold for the rest of the festival year.
Yeah.
And we've actually seen amazing projects and met amazing people like yourselves. So thank you, all of you.
Great.
Do stay in
Thanks for
touch,
having us.
like we said, definitely.
Yeah, we're always on the other end of an email. Not necessarily a phone call, but we'll try. But definitely on the other end of an email. So do stay in touch. And honestly, I look forward to seeing your next projects and how your career develops in the next couple of years. Stay in touch.
Bye, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys. See you later.
Cheers.
Oh, we're stuck on this screen.
We're stuck.
A little bit of a messy ending there, but never mind. They were fantastic stories. I mean, that genre confusion has re-sparked my desire to act again. And
Loved
just
hearing about all of those.
Yeah, Deaf Cafe, originally from London, now it's all over the world. And then Esports, that's got so many legs to make into a short film, into a feature film.
And a 10-year project with Symphoria.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you again to all of those guys for sharing with us.
Yes, thank you so much. We'll be back with the London Audience Choice
Yes.
Roundtable very shortly.